What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Z-Man Show. Before we start off, this is of course all my opinion. I'm going to mention some games that in my opinion have bad stories and games that in my opinion have good stories. But I think the encompassing question still makes sense to everybody. First, let's look at a series that was really great with gameplay and also really awesome with their story. Jak and Daxter. The Jak and Daxter series started on PlayStation 2 with Jak and Daxter, the Precursor's Legacy. Nobody actually says the Precursor Legacy part. I'm surprised they even remembered it. This game was and still is one of my favorite games from Naughty Dog. The story goes, Jak and his nerdy little friend Daxter go across to an island that's forbidden to go to where the evil lurkers hang out. And coincidentally, Gaul and Maya, the people that are leading the lurkers, are there talking about how they're going to take over the world. Jak and Daxter sneak around a bit, and Daxter ends up falling into what's called Dark Eco, which morphs him into a little orange rat thing called an Otzel. They're not real, I checked. And they get sent on a quest to find a sage to cure Daxter and turn him back to normal. This game's story was pretty lighthearted and very fun. You would learn more about the world and a little bit of the story by talking to NPCs and doing missions for them, and furthering the story every time you got to a new place or finished a new area. And like I said before, the gameplay was also absolutely awesome. A 3D adventure platformer focused mostly on running, jumping, punching, spinning, you know, the classic early 2000s platformer. An all-around really awesome game. The story in the first game, while good, wasn't super complex, which was totally fine for a game like this. It's when you get to the sequel, Jak 2, the story gets nuts. After a big adventure of stopping bad guys, running through fun little areas, meeting a cast of colorful characters, and riding a big funny bird, a giant demon sucks you through a portal into a dark and dangerous place where an authoritarian government kidnaps our main character and does biological experiments on him with Dark Eco for years. But of course, our kind-hearted mute hero, who still hasn't said a thing his whole life, is still full of hope and wonder and able to get "I'm gonna kill Praxis." Oh. Is that a gun? When I first got to play this game as a kid, I was probably 13 or 14. And coming off of the first game into this one, I was at the perfect age for this to be bad ass. I mean, it still is, but looking back on it as an adult, it's a little corny. But at that time, it blew my mind. Without going into too many spoilers, the story goes crazy. It is extremely good, in my opinion. It raised the stakes, added a ton of character development, and very good world building. And of course, it expanded on gameplay, while, if I remember correctly, not taking away anything from the original gameplay either. For the most part, I believe you have every base move that Jak had in the first game. You just hand him a big gun and supernatural dark powers. So how important is the story in this game? One, it's obviously integral. You have to have a reason for our characters to come from the world they're in to this new place. So of course this game needs a story, but did it need to be so good? The game would have sold well and been enjoyed quite a bit, even if the story wasn't quite as good. But it definitely wouldn't have been as iconic. And if it wasn't gripping enough like this one is, it wouldn't have gotten the amazing final game. Yes, I said final. I won't talk too much about Jak 3 because it's basically the same kind of deal. They just make another really good story that comes a little bit after Jak 2 and just expands on the world. And while maybe not quite as deep, still has some really awesome elements to it. And again, the gameplay is still absolutely fantastic. So I think the Jak and Daxter series is a great example of a great game mechanically with a great story to go alongside it throughout the franchise until after the third one when everything went bad. Now let's look at a game that has awesome gameplay, but a subpar story. How about another franchise? Just Cause. Just Cause is a franchise starring the character Rico Rodriguez. He's got a grappling hook. He's got a wingsuit. He's got so many ways to destroy things. I've played every game in this series, except for the first one actually. I've played almost every game in the franchise, and I had to look up the main character's name a second ago because I forgot it. This game franchise is a perfect example of a story with absolutely awesome gameplay. Each subsequent game gives you more and more ways to travel throughout these really beautiful worlds, whether by vehicle, by parachute, grappling hook, then wingsuit. You can fly into a tornado. I can't tell you one of the bad guys' names in any of them. No, wait a minute. Baby Panay, I think, was the one in Just Cause 2. I do remember that one. Now, the stories in these games aren't necessarily bad. They're just kind of barely there. Each of the game's story is Rico getting put into a new environment to take down a dictator by absolutely decimating the entire place. But when it comes to showing or even telling you what's happening in the story, other than a few cutscenes here and there and people on walkie-talkies, you don't get a whole lot. But you don't need a whole lot, because that's not really what the game's all about. I started with this franchise in Just Cause 2, and if memory serves correctly, I think I remember 3 cutscenes out of every time I played it. But I kept coming back for more, and so did the other fans. So yes, Just Cause is a great example showing that a game can still be very good even though its story is kinda meh. Now lastly, how about a game that has really great gameplay, but a bad story? This might come as a shock, but I'm about to talk about Sonic.
Wow! You have taught me the meaning of total surprise.
I'm pretty sure some Sonic fans will agree with me on this, but I'm sure some won't. Sonic Generations' original story wasn't very good. Sonic's having a surprise birthday party for his 20th anniversary. They're all having fun, they're eating chili dogs. Sonic pushes Amy away by her face because that's what he's supposed to do. Or not, I don't really care. But then all of a sudden, a big purple monster shows up and sucks everybody into a portal. Sonic tries to follow, but he gets knocked out and wakes up in white space. So eventually we learn that this place exists outside of time, and both classic and modern Sonic have to run really fast to fix it all. There really aren't a whole lot of cutscenes in this game, at least if you don't count Sonic's friends coming back to life when you beat both acts in a level. Now there's something you have to ask yourself. Is the story really important in this game? Not really. I don't want to say it's terrible, but it's not very good. The story preceding it wasn't very good either.
Baldy nose hair!
So I guess that was just a sign of things to come. So the big question, does Sonic Generations' bad story ruin the game? Absolutely not. Sonic Generations basically perfected the Boost era gameplay, including having some really fun reimagined levels in classic Sonic style, and had some of the best Boost era level designs there ever were, not you. And just because, in my opinion, the story was kind of bad, definitely doesn't make the overall product bad. The problem it does cause is it leaves something to be desired. When you're playing a video game, obviously first and foremost, the game has to be fun. It should feel great to play. You should want to keep playing it. And if the game achieves that, that's usually half, if not more than half the battle. But while a bad story might not ruin a game, a great story can elevate a great game to masterpiece status. Like I said earlier about Jak and Daxter, I don't think it would have gone as far or be remembered as fondly without such an awesome story in its legacy. Or should I say precursor legacy? Add that principle onto the Just Cause series. If that franchise had a really good story behind it too, I think that franchise would be a household name. Sonic games have definitely had really awesome stories. Hell, they're making a movie based on one of them. And while some people really only care about the gameplay, which is totally fine, that's your preference, there are plenty of us that absolutely love diving into the lore, looking at all the stories that have come before and the ones that are still happening now, and get really invested in them. And right now, things are looking good. So can a bad story ruin a good game? I don't think so, but I think it can hold a game back from reaching its true potential.